Good morning. Good morning. Oh my God. Sit down. I am And a big All Souls hug to every single one of you. I'm so happy for this reunion. I'm so happy that everything went as well as it did in my absence. You saw how brilliant you are. You experienced the beautiful and tender and competent ministry of Reverend Tricia Brennan, for whom I know. Oh, Tricia. Your confidence in our magnificent staff was affirmed and renewed in my absence, and now we get to be together again and witness the way that we have changed and what remains, what is eternal. I look out and I see the faces of friends who I have not met quite yet. I see folks we haven't seen since before the pandemic. So good to see you, Scott and Jessica. I see folks who have been here through it all, and there are at least, I think, 20 people in the online pews. We see you, and we are so grateful to be together in all of the ways that we have been together for so long and the new ways that have emerged in these interesting times in which we are living. It is so good to be able to say once again, welcome to All Souls, where all souls are welcome. You are joyfully called this morning and ever to worship. We, of course, gather and worship and work in land that historically was occupied and cared for by the Nahantic tribes. We are grateful to them, for they are here still, and they take as great care of this land as their ancestors have in the past. And so we give thanks and hold that legacy close as we begin this morning. And we begin, as ever, by rising in body and or in spirit and singing our opening hymn, Morning Has Come.
The
if you are here for the first time, I invite you to raise your hand so that we may welcome you appropriately. I see, and she's ducking as she raises her hand. So be sensitive. Welcome, we see you. Glad that you are here. Let's wave to the souls in the online pews. We see you, and so glad that you are here. We are continuing to bump elbows as we pass the peace, and so let us look to each other and offer the peace that we hold in your hearts. Peace be with you.
Good morning. Each week we light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith and a symbol of freedom and justice. And this morning we invite up Posey and Grayson to light the chalice for us. Too hot. Yeah.
Whatever.
And as Grayson finds the chalice and as they emerge from the flowers to light our chalice, we say together these words, "Joy and woe are woven fine, clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine."
Thank you both so much. It was fantastic. That was fantastic. Welcome back. This is the first Sunday of June. June is, of course, Pride Month. And so as we light this chalice to say Happy Pride, we remember that pride is protest. Remember that there are places throughout this country and in fact the world where the lives of queer folks are in constant danger. And so we light this candle for the places where the lives of queer folks are in constant danger. And we light it in gratitude for the places, the sanctuary included, where those lives are celebrated. And so, happy Pride, everyone. Here we go. And now the story for all ages. I'm going to invite the children who are in the sanctuary to come on forward for that. And I want to say just a little bit about this story. It's good to see you all. Excellent. Perry and Liz is serving as our liturgist this morning, are going to share a story called, as you see, The Birthday of the World. This was a gift that Lori Blayfeld gave me at the start of my sabbatical. Little did she know how much this story would come to mean to me in the midst of the learning that I did during my sabbatical. It really is a story of the way that life brings both joy and sorrow, and that we must engage with both of those. And so I hope you will enjoy the story and the beautiful illustrations as much as I have. Perry and Liz.
When I was very small, my grandfather was my favorite person in the world. He called me by a special name, Neshumala, which means little beloved, and he knew many, many stories. When I turned 4, he gave me a very old story called The Birthday of the World, and it goes like this. In the beginning, there was only darkness, and then a great ray of light ended the darkness, and the world was born. The world of 1,000 things. It was filled with light. Then something unexpected happened, and the light of the world broke into 1,000,000 sparks of light. These sparks fell everywhere. They fell into everyone and everything. They fell into all the people. They fell into all the animals. They fell into all the fish in the ocean and all the birds in the sky. They fell into all of the plants and all the trees and all of the families. And they're still there today, hidden in everyone and everything. And this is why you were born. And I was born, and everyone was born. We were all born because we can each find the spark of light that is hidden in everyone and everything. We can become its friend. We can feed it and help it grow bigger and shine more brightly. We can help it grow so bright that it becomes visible once again, one spark at a time. I asked Grandpa, But if the sparks of light are hidden and we cannot see them, how can we find them?
Ah, Neshumala. We can't see them with our eyes. We can only see them with our hearts. Only your heart can see the spark of light that is hidden in everyone and everything. When we are kind to people, or listen to them, or believe in them, or love them, or help them realize their deepest dreams, we help their spark grow bigger and brighter until their light shines and fills up the world again, one spark at a time. And when it does, your own spark grows bigger and shines brighter and brighter.
So the world is not broken, Grandpa? The light is still here? My grandfather smiled fondly at me.
Yes, Neshumala, the light is hidden, but the light is still there. It will always be there, and that changes everything.
This is the story of the birthday of the world, and it was given to me, and now I give it to you. One spark at a time, we can change the world. And so ends the story.
So, in Faith Formation, we share our sparks of light with each other, and we're going to do that as you send us out with the sparks of trees of the field.
Amen. That was fun. And so we are reminded every Sunday that one of the commitments that we make to each other in community is to bear witness to each other's lives, to recognize the joy and the sorrow both that each of us holds in some way or another. And we do so in a whole range of ways. Those of you in the online pews, if there is something that you would like to have shared here in Unity Hall, please write that in the chat with the reminder to not respond to each other so that I can find what I need to share more easily. Those of you here in Unity Hall are invited to come forward and light a candle of intention as you are so moved. You will notice that there is a table that is not on the ramp, but on the ground. So if that is easier for you, please use that down below. And then we will also be checking the book for joys and sorrows to share. And then you also have the option of beloved community at allsouls.net. So we open this circle and this time for the creation and sustenance of beloved community. Oh, boy. All right. Let's look and see what we welcome. All right, here we go. So let us open our hearts to hear what has been shared online and in person this morning. Tony Sermosky is thankful to be blessed enough to know when to adjust his sails and stay on course. Amen. Wow. Tony, that got a big woo here in Unity Hall. Good for you, Tony. We celebrate with you. Julie Olson, who is in Florida, shared that her daughter, Laura, has just started a one-year master's degree program to teach special education to kindergarten through 8th graders. I know every teacher in this sanctuary, there are always many, celebrate most especially with you, Julie. Best wishes to Laura. That's great news. Eileen Dolan asks that we send our blessings to her daughter, Mary, a newly graduated social worker who is so excited to begin her new job at Stonington Institute tomorrow. Oh, Eileen, that is wonderful. And the other half of the congregation are social workers. So they are celebrating with you too. Oh, we need good ones, boy, we need good ones. Giselle and Linda celebrate that they will be married next week in this sanctuary. Oh, we're all so happy about that, Giselle. Fantastic. It'll be a happy day. Vanessa Hawk, who is such a lovely online greeter, celebrates her 38th birthday today. So we wish you a happy birthday, Vanessa. That's fantastic. And Rada Richmond Covey down in Brooklyn. We're so happy that you're online, Rada. We miss you here. She's looking forward to transferring her furniture from Niantic to Far Rockaway next weekend. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Rada. We all know how that goes. And then here in Unity Hall, Maria shares the very sad news that she and her husband, Rob, had to put down their cat last week, who was a very sweet companion for many years. We also, oh geez, Maria, there's much more here than came online. The water heater broke in her home, your girlfriend's car died, but your mom had surgery and she's doing okay. You had a big week. You had a big week. That's it, right? Right, that's the only thing that happened. So I also would like to share with you, you know that today is our annual meeting, and our fearless and gracious leader normally would be in the room, President of our Board of Trustees, Karen Ether Waring, and sadly, Karen is home with COVID. And so, Karen, I know you're in the online pews. We send you healing thoughts and disappointment that you can't be here this morning, and gratitude for all the work that you did today. We're going to be thanking Karen more robustly during the annual meeting. But hold on. About to choke. But we are grateful. We say now and again, wish for a swift recovery, Karen. Bless your heart. So let us enter into a time of prayer and meditation so that we may hold this joy and sorrow close. Loving Spirit of life, embracing love that will not let us go in all the ways known and named and intuited, we gather. We gather up our hearts as we extend to other souls care and love and concern. Blessings. Blessings as each of us move through these days. Joy and sorrow woven fine is the way that we recognize and move through life. And so we give thanks for both. We give thanks indeed for this day, for all that it will bring, the learning, the love, the care. We give thanks and we say, Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bill. It's so good to be back. The soul lives in such eternally deep time. The soul lives in such eternally deep time. So said the wise theologian, Richard Rohr. And that wisdom for me at the start of my sabbatical really struck a chord. For the last 3 years, time has felt eternally deep. I've had many conversations with many of you about that. If the soul lives in such eternally deep time as Rohr suggests, then the last 3 years have reformed time and indeed our very souls in ways previously unimaginable. Bring yourself back to February of 2020. It's the before times. Would you ever have imagined that in 1 month's time, we would, for the first time, worship together, but apart? On March 15th. Would you have imagined that we would do so for the next 76 Sundays that made up the 18 months that followed? In February 2020, the prospect that I just named would have seemed unimaginable, right? We have lived through the unimaginable. And so how does the soul shape shift in the eternal deep of time? I began my sabbatical with a sense of curiosity. Who have I become since March of 2020? In the quiet expanse of time that you made possible for me, I trusted that I would find out. And there was something that I knew needed particular investigation, needed meaning making. I have been floating on a pool of sorrow for most of my life. The sorrow has always been a combination of the beautiful world's brokenness and the grief that every human being carries all of the time. My sorrow has never advanced to depression. But over the last 3 years, that pool had gotten mighty deep. It got deep for the cumulative impact of all that had transpired socially, politically, environmentally, and yes, personally. I needed to take a deep dive into that pool and see what I would find there. And this is what happened. Returning, reunion, restoration, and then revelation. I rested. I stared out of windows. I went for long walks. I spent a lot of time with my beloved Kate. I sat around tables with dearly beloved family and family friends. I traveled to Florida, to the Pacific Northwest, and yes, to Italy. I reveled in the joy of live music. I was brought to emotional heights in theaters. I was moved by the visual brilliance of visual art. I cooked. I baked. I watched the seasons change. I quieted down. I was restored. And there was this major revelation. Many of you know that Jan had been a member of this congregation since 1965, and Jan died back in April. And before she died, I was fortunate to see her when she was at L&M. I hadn't seen her in a long while, and although I was sorry that I would be seeing her in the hospital, it didn't dampen the happiness that reunion brings. At the time, the daffodils were blooming in full tilt, so I brought her a big bunch, knowing that she was likely lamenting missing the same blooms in her own magnificent garden. She may have been happier to see the daffodils than the sight of me. It was a joyful and it was a bittersweet reunion all at once. We settled in quickly, catching up, acknowledging the truth of this moment. And about a half hour later, Jan's youngest son, Jack, arrived, and it was really good to see him. The three of us settled into this sweet and spirited conversation that wended its way to this important question. I asked, "How are you feeling about entering this final chapter of your life?" "Relieved," she said. "The country is in such a terrible place, it has become too painful to witness." I felt Jan's life story beckoning to me, demanding to be given voice. A tad incredulous, I reminded her of something for which absolutely needed no reminder. "Jan," I said, "you grew up in a war-torn country." Indeed, Jan was an 8-year-old English girl when the bombs began to fall in what the British named as the Blitz. She was 13 when World War II finally ended. Imagine. All said to no avail. Jan was unmoved and resolved. But as many of you know, at times I can be a bit of a pastoral bulldozer. Get an amen, Kyle? I acknowledged that it does seem as though the country is indeed going to hell in a handbasket. Terrible. But I reminded her of her life, her spectacular and slightly scandalous, which I always loved, courtship with Jonathan, her husband of 50 years, her beautiful life in her adopted country, her family, all she accomplished advocating for 2 children with special needs in the 1960s. All the beauty she created throughout her long life, all the gorgeous meals, she was a great cook, all the gorgeous meals she prepared and served, the gardens she grew, the art she created. She was a beautiful painter. I think she was slightly moved, at least. In any case, we shared a big laugh, which is, of course, the best medicine of all. As I took my leave, this revelation just filled my heart, and I have Jan to thank for this, her company. Here's the thing. That pool of sorrow that I told you about earlier is indeed deeper, and not just for me. I know that it is deeper for many, if not all, of you. But so is life's joy. The past 3 years have also made the experience of joy more robust, in part because joy is so badly needed right now. I'm no longer concerned, as I had been before the sabbatical, about my sorrow's power and its potential to knock me over at any given moment, because if I'm weeping, it's for good reason. The world is going to hell in a handbasket. It does break my heart every minute of every day. But there is joy in the morning. There is joy in the afternoon. There's joy in the evening. And it's better to weep after all, to offer my sorrow, my kind hand. It's better to weep than to panic, worried about overwhelm. Life's joy is the compassionate twin to life's sorrow. And I claim each, as big as they are, as my own. Clint Smith is a poet. I had never heard of him before, before I saw him on Stephen Colbert, late night. And he read this poem right around the time I had seen Jan. And it's a poem Liz will share with you now. It so perfectly captures this idea and wisdom.
All at Once by Clint Smith. The redwoods are on fire in California. A flood submerges a neighborhood that sat quiet on the coast for 3 centuries. A child takes their first steps and tumbles into a father's arms. 2 people in New Orleans fall in love under an oak tree whose branches are like sorrow. A forest of seeds is planted in new soil. A glacier melts into the ocean, and the sea climbs closer to the land. A man comes home from war and holds his son for the first time. A man is killed by a drone that thinks his jug of water is a bomb. Your best friend relapses and isn't picking up the phone. Your son's teacher calls to say he stood up for another boy in class. A country below the equator ends a 20-year civil war. A soldier across the Atlantic fires the shot that begins another. The scientists find a vaccine that will save millions of people's lives. Your mother's cancer has returned, and the doctors say there is nothing they can do. There's a funeral procession in the morning and a wedding in the afternoon. The river that gives us water to drink is the same one that might wash us away. And so ends the reading.
It's really something, that poem, right? As my friend Billy would say in moments crucial, it's life, the musical. I will hold close the wisdom shared by an Italian man Kate and I met in Italy. Kiko was our guide on a hike on the Via Francigena, which is a pilgrimage that goes from Rome to Canterbury. Kiko had a strong connection to the land going back to his childhood. This is where he grew up. And he shared his passion with us as we covered the 5 miles of beauty. We got talking about the rise of authoritarianism in Italy and in the United States and in too many countries throughout our world. We talked about Italy's current administration, one that is disturbingly fascist-leaning. We talked about the previous administration here in the United States and the havoc it unleashed. But finally, he said, well, you have a bowl of pasta, a glass of wine with your friends, with your family, and life is good. Again, joy and sorrow woven fine. This is the image of the places we were walking through as that conversation happened. And when you see that blue sky and that green and those cypress trees, the symbol of Tuscany, you remember the world's beauty and the power that it has, and the power of connecting and relationship, the power of the table, of the feast, of the journey. And I'm so grateful to have been reminded of that wisdom. So that revelation and the inner peace it brought was one of the sabbatical's central gifts for me, and I'm grateful. And it's good to be back with you, so good. I'm excited that of all that transpired in my absence and all that we are looking forward to as a congregation, Katrina. I can honestly say that I did not worry about All Souls the entire time. It's true. I have you. It's true. I was in the online pews very quietly for the budget hearing. I will tell you that. I did sneak in for that. I can honestly say, again, that I did not worry. After all, you were in, as I said, the capable hands of the wonderful Reverend Tricia. And she, as importantly, was in your good and welcoming and competent hands. She could not say enough about this congregation's leadership and the whole vibe and culture of this congregation. Your board of trustees is as trustworthy, dedicated, and effective a leadership team as can be possibly hoped for. The staff operates as a joyful and creative team that supports each other as they support All Souls' mission and vision. So why worry? Again, I have reason to express my gratitude to you for that. Thank you, dear souls. It is so good to be back. And may you find a resting place in your soul's eternally deep time. Blessed, blessed be, blessed be. I invite you into a moment of quiet so that we may hold close the shard and sparks of light that are in our hearts, just waiting to be shared.
So we have come to the time of our service for our offering. And if you will join me in reading the words on our order of service. We give to the work of all souls. Our work weaves the fabric of love called community. To this end, we dedicate ourselves and this our offering. The offering will be gratefully received. For all that you have shared and all that you have sacrificed, thank you. Thank you.
Our closing hymn is number 17. I invite you to rise in body and or in spirit. You will recognize the lyric as it was our chalice lighting. I invite you to rise. I invite you to hold your hands out to the world beyond that is waiting for the spark that each of us hold within our hearts to encourage, to inspire, to love, and to care. Joy and woe woven fine. Go in peace, actually go nowhere. We will all be here for the annual meeting, sharing our light, and then return again with great joy. Amen. Amen. We will extinguish the chalice with these words. Our service has ended, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. The chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion. Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Bill. There's two quick announcements. One is that the annual meeting is happening in just a couple of minutes, so just quickly grab a cup of coffee and a bite to eat and come right on back. If you haven't gotten a card or registered, you can do that right after the service. And next week is Faith Formation Sunday, one of the most joyful Sundays of the year for us. So we look forward to seeing you all then and celebrating our children and youth. That's all. Thank you all so much. Online pews, I hope you stay tuned for the annual meeting.
Welcome back.
and I'm homesick today. I'm really grateful to Paul and to the executive committee, Sally and Janet and Katrina, as well as the at-large board members who are all doing the work of the meeting this morning. I'm home watching from the online pews. Here is a reading to open this morning's meeting. It's part of the poem In Our Circle Again by Sherry Woodbury. Here we are in our circle again, a circle of vision, a forum for deciding and empowering. We're gathered again at the cusp of the future and the boundary that holds our community together. With a servant's heart and a leader's listening, let us model the health we seek for all and lean into community. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds for our future. And so ends the reading. I also just want to say welcome back, Carolyn. We missed you. We did great while you were on sabbatical, but we really are happy to have you back. Also, we want to express our gratitude to Perry Montrose for his leadership and warmth during all of this time, and to Tammy Barber, Administrative Assistant Extraordinaire, for her goodwill and organization and hard work throughout this time, and especially in the last few weeks in preparing with the annual report. Thank you.
So good morning again. I'm Paul Carolyn. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. This morning I'm the interim sabbatical facilitator. Here along with the Executive Committee, Sally McGee, Vice President, Janet Beebe, Treasurer, Katrina Burkow, Secretary, and their at-large board members, Bob Mounts, Danielle Gutowski-Mello, Alex Holezek, and Jonathan Town. Karen Ether-Waring, Board President, not able to be with us today due to the illness, so I now call the 2023 annual meeting to order. Katrina, can you please confirm that we have a quorum?
We have 101 members today, and a quorum would be 20% of 251 members, or 50, so we do have a quorum here, as well as proxy votes and several people online voting.
Great, thank you very much. Our next order of business is the recognition of our volunteers. As Karen noted, this past year is all about getting our pre-pandemic feet under us. We've gotten back to in-person worship and gatherings and resumed fundraising activities. Our members have stepped up in more ways than we have time to name in today's meeting. However, we're going to take the time to acknowledge those who took volunteer leadership roles over the past year. We ask that you please hold your applause as I read the names of the volunteer leaders. When I read your name, just please stand up, please stay standing. We end up maybe having the whole room almost standing up because everyone is so involved in our congregation. And at the end of the meeting, we ask that you come up and help yourself to one of these beautiful little floral arrangements as our small gift token of thanks to you. Chairman or chairpersons of the Finance Committee, Joel Ackerman and Claire Evento. Please stand. You're such good listeners. Susan Marjorie, chair of the Stewardship Committee. The Nominating and Leadership Committee, chaired this year by Linda Sargent. Billing team, led by Katrina Burkow. Bylaws team, Jan Larson, Linda Sargent, and Jonathan Town. Lynn Tavermina and Jan Larson for the work on communications. Good Works gardening team, coordinated by Carol Bunting. Good Works community meals team, coordinated by Carol Irwin. Greeters and observers, coordinated by Karen Jones and Joyce and Paul Schaefer. Crane Sanctuary Committee, chaired by Jonathan Harger. Growth Through Service, Eileen Ego. The hospitality team that provides our coffee and treats, led by Janet Merolda. Outreach team, coordinated by Paul Carolyn and Erica Harger. Membership, Lynn Tavermina, Chair. Facilities, Sid Gardner, Chair. Safety, Karen Jones, Chair. The START team, an important team that took place for ongoing advisement on COVID response. Bruce Cummings, Gretchen Edstrom, and Laurel Holmes. The Sharing Circle, coordinated by Carol Cassidy, Suzanne Colton Carey, and Carol Irwin. Denominational Affairs, coordinated by Bob Bunting. Friday Night Folk, Nick Evento, coordinator. And Technology, John's last name, Butcher? Betcher. You betcher it is. Let's give them a nice round of applause and say thank you. This list is a small representation of the dozens of members who volunteer to do the work at All Souls. We will honor the 40-plus members who also teach our faith formation classes during Faith Formation Sunday, which I believe is next Sunday. Thank you for your time, effort, and creativity in keeping All Souls running. Again, these petunias are a small token for you to take home, and a donation to the New London Community Meal Center will be made in honor of all of our volunteers. Another round of applause for them, please. Before we move on to the other business of the annual meeting, we'd like to take a moment to highlight one volunteer who might go otherwise unnoticed. Susan Beebe overcame the inertia of the shutdown to get the tag sale up and going again. It was a joyful event, and Susan spent the entire week of the sale at All Souls, not to mention the hours planning and recruiting volunteers and donations. With support from Danielle Gutowski-Miller, Frida Berrigan, Janet Beebe, and 50 other souls, the tag sale raised nearly $7,000 for the congregation. Susan, please come up to be acknowledged, and we have a small token of our gratitude for you. Come on up, Susan.
And we, Sally and I, want to especially thank and honor Karen Ether-Waring. So why don't you come on up, Sally?
All right. Good morning. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
My name's Sally McGee. I'm the vice president of the board. So Karen is finishing a year of service as the board chair. She's not with us because she's got COVID, sad, but she is with us in so many ways. Karen just plain leads with compassion. She's always open to new ideas and seeing things through a different lens. And having a board chair who leads that way, sorry, Karen, but it's contagious. This year has been full of transitions, a planned sabbatical, and unplanned absences, including my own for big chunks of time this year. And Karen has filled in so many ways, administratively, pastorally, and leading the board, often one person down. And she's done it beautifully. Karen, we are all so fortunate to have you leading the board, and we are so grateful to have you as a friend. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I would just like to say I had anticipated Karen's presidency as in the years leading up, knowing that whoever was in that vice president's role would be the president when I was away for 4 months. And I was very relieved when it was Karen Ether-Waring, because I knew that she would be, as presidents always are, the right leader for that particular time. I always put my deep faith into that understanding. And Karen, you absolutely were that leader. Again, from what Sally just said, the seismic transitions in this congregation, from Caitlin's resignation to Tricia coming in to Catherine leaving to have a baby. You know, all these are all joyful things. They're healthy things. They happen in every congregation, and it's a lot to hold. And so, Karen, with your graciousness, your compassion, your organization, and your grit, I am personally so thankful, and corporately, institutionally, I am so grateful. So thank you, Karen, a swift recovery to you, and as Sally said, you are absolutely with us in spirit. Do you want to sing about the gift? Oh, yeah.
And Karen, later today, I will drop off a little herb garden that we got for you, just as a small token of thanks. I won't come in, I'll just drop it off on the wall, in the driveway.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And I forgot to say something earlier, and I'm just going to say it now. Mark Roble, Reverend Mark Roble, is being installed today as the minister of the Wellesley congregation. And so, in just a couple of hours. And so I know that you will hold that congregation and Mark in your hearts as they celebrate this wonderful, wonderful beginning. So here's to Mark. And to Tom. It takes a family. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we're about to move into the more business part of the business. And we operate under the democratic rules of order. So how that works very briefly is I'll ask for a motion on the floor for a particular item. If you raise your hand and I acknowledge you for the motion, please state your name. Because I won't remember all the names. Clearly, I don't pronounce some of the names correctly. But Katrina will take care of that. And then we have a second for the motion, and then we open it for discussion. We have the microphone here. If anyone would like to ask a question or ask for clarification or make a comment, you're welcome to do so. And then, unless there is a motion within that for an amendment, which sometimes can happen. If there isn't, then we go to the voting. If there is a motion for an amendment, we go through the same process. Move the amendment, second the amendment, discuss the amendment, vote on the amendment, then go back to the original item. If that isn't confusing enough, it might soon be. No, it should be okay. All right. Our next item is approval of online voting. So the board has been in discussion about our bylaws and ways to accommodate new online members. And one of the ideas that we came up with after lots of exploration and research was to allow electronic voting during today's meeting. But because that's not part of the bylaws, we need a vote from the congregation since the bylaws have not been updated yet. So is there a motion from the floor to allow electronic voting during today's meeting? Okay.
I'm Maria Barais, and I make a motion that we accept online voting.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have that, Katrina? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussions? Is there any discussion? Please come to the microphone. Please come to the microphone.
You have to. People can't hear you at home.
Can I just say, this was just left, someone's missing their vote. We can't hear you, Joyce.
Okay. All right. What Joyce is saying is that someone lost their voting card. So if you picked up number 100 before, that's where it is. Okay, let's continue on.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, and you vote by holding your cards up. If you have a proxy card, as I do, you hold up too. So all those in favor of the motion to allow electronic voting during today's meeting, please raise your cards. Katrina's not going to count them. She's just going to get a sense of them. All right. If there's any opposed, please raise your card. None opposed. If there's any who abstain from voting on this motion, please raise your card. Okay, so the motion passes. Thanks for coming today. No, we're not done yet. Okay. Next, we're asking for approval of the minutes from the May 22nd, 2022 annual meeting. All of this information was in the e-blast that was sent out Wednesday, so that's all that was there. Hopefully you all had a chance to read it. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 22, 2022 annual meeting? Lexi?
Alexis Caven.
Thank you. A second? What is your name, young fella? Nick Vento. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion to accept the minutes of last year's meeting? Okay, we'll vote. All raise your cards if you approve the minutes of last year's annual meeting. Thank you. Raise your card if you oppose. Abstain, please raise your cards. And this motion passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have, we're asking for approval of the annual report from fiscal year 2023, which is this report here. We have just 2 revisions to make on page 3. It indicates 2022 to 2024. It should read 2023 to 2024 leadership slate. So we'll be voting on that reflection. And also, I believe there was one error on members of the nominating and leadership development. Alexis, this is year 2 for you, correct? Okay, and this is year 1, so that should reflect from year 2. All right, again, we'll have a motion, a second, and then we'll have discussion. Is there a motion on the floor to accept the annual report from fiscal year 22-23? Liz Binger. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? In the back, please stand up. Gina Campbell. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the annual report from fiscal year 2022 to 2023? Please come up, George. And again, when you come up, state your name.
Real quickly, this is going to be the annual complaint from a crotchety old man. It's a report. Most of it is written by the chairperson of a committee. Congregation has no idea what happens in committees. You don't approve reports. The worst thing that happens is like the city council where they only vote to accept or reject, which is a stupid thing to do too. But it's a report. Don't bother making it so formal. If is the budget in there?
Yes. Yes.
Then your voting could be considered voting to approve the budget. This is a useless step.
Amen.
Just for clarification, the approval of the 23-24 budget is a different item. So, yeah.
Budget's in the document.
Yes.
You're voting to approve the document.
Good.
Just an addition on the Secretary of the Congregation report, Carrie Evento was also memorial service.
Okay. Thank you for that. And apologies for the omission. Other discussion on the motion to approve the annual report from fiscal year 2022-2023? Okay. So this time we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the annual report from fiscal year 2022-2023, raise your cards. Thank you. Opposed, raise your cards. 3. Let's maintain decorum here, please.
Thanks, MTG.
3 opposed. Any abstaining? Please raise your 1, 2. Okay, 3 opposed, 2 abstaining. Thank you for that input from all.
Paul?
Yes.
Remember that I just want to remind Paul and everyone else that there is a 10-second delay between what's happening in the sanctuary and what's the folks in the online pews are seeing. So we need to hold just for a moment so that the folks that are voting online have an opportunity to actually hear what we're voting on and then vote. All right, so if we just hold after every vote for that.
My wife Kathy tells me that I always talk too fast, so I will slow down a little bit. Okay. The next item is the approval of the leadership slate.
As the chair of the nominating committee, I move to approve the leadership slate for 2023-2024 as it appears on page 3 of the 2022-2023 annual report. And please, is there someone to second this?
Sue Frankowitz seconds it.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'm not sure when I look at this.
George, could you come up? Sorry. Do you mind coming up?
When I look at this, I can't tell who it is, especially since I think one of them was changed. So who are we voting? Who is up? We're not voting this whole slate because there are people already elected. Which ones are we voting for?
The whole slate.
The whole slate? So we're, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? May we have a vote to approve?
Okay,
Thank
thank you. If there are any votes against this, approving the leadership slate? We okay online with that? And any abstentions? Okay, our next item is the approval of slate of delegates to the UU General Assembly. Bob and Carol Bunting and Maria Bryce have stepped up to represent All Souls at the General Assembly in June. Thank you, Bob, Carol, and Maria. We can send 2 additional delegates, but have not yet found members to represent. In hopes that we do find others, I'm going to ask for a motion that gives the Board of Trustees authority to approve potential additional delegates to the General Assembly. So I'm asking for a motion to approve Bob Bunting, Carol Bunting, and Maria Bryce to be All Souls delegates to the UU General Assembly, and to give the Board of Trustees authority to approve 2 additional delegates. Is a motion there? And it's already been moved. A second. All right, George, thank you. Is there any discussion?
I'm Maria Bryce. Now, I'm lucky enough that I am going to go to Pittsburgh, but I want to make sure to remember to tell everybody, I did this online one year, and it was phenomenal. I personally took myself to a hotel because I knew I couldn't pay attention at home. But I want to just remind you, you don't have to go all the way to Pittsburgh. It's really great to be in the rooms online.
Thank you, Maria.
I'm Tina Dubosk. I have been a delegate in the past. It's an amazing experience. So if anybody would, we have 2 spots left, you really should consider going. It's amazing. I would like to see a report from the people who went to the convention, written report to the congregation. We'd like to know what you did, what happened out there. We never get any of these. I think it's important. We are part of a larger community that's actually international. I think that the delegates need to give us a report. That's all. Thank you.
Is that just a suggestion, or are you moving that happen? Okay, so you're moving for an amendment that would include that a written report is provided at the conclusion of the General Assembly. Is there a second to that? Sue Frankowitz seconded it? Sorry, I'll get you next time. Any discussion on that amendment?
Bob Bunting. I have been a delegate multiple times over the past 10 years. We have held live sessions to present what went on, to discuss it with people. The participation from the general congregation has been embarrassingly pitiful. Asking us to do more, or rather insisting that we do more, is something that almost makes me want to say, well, then I'm withdrawing my willingness to be a delegate. I spend a good part of a whole week, and this year it extends out beforehand because of stuff they can do online. Learning what I can. I do bring it back. It's shared with multiple people as their interest is personally expressed. Spending the time, which for me is challenging, to write up a report and edit it, review it, and all of that is just something I'm not willing to put that level of effort in addition to attending all the stuff that I can in the course of the week of the actual GA. So I would request that this amendment not be added to anything formal. We do try and provide something for the newsletter if there are important issues. For instance, this year there's going to be a vote on the Article 2 stuff. And we will send something back to the congregation, but a report on that by rights should include, if it's being done, everything we saw and heard at the meeting that might be applicable to the congregation. Is no, just no. So I will let it proceed to the congregation, and we will see what happens.
Thank you for your comments. Any further discussion on the amendment? Sue?
I appreciate Bob's honesty and concerns, and I think maybe if we want to proceed in some way, it ought to start next year rather than people who've already committed to something and suddenly we've just given them another job to do. But I was a delegate for 5 years when I was at the Unitarian Society of New Haven, always in person because that was the choice, and they were all happened to be in the East, in Rochester, Cleveland, Boston, Quebec City. You know, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and we always came back and planned a summer service and presented the highlights, and it was a wonderful experience. And if I had an iPhone and I was going to be going to the GA online, which I tried to do last year or the year before and couldn't without an iPhone to get anything really useful out of it, I would be more than happy to put together a summer Sunday service. So I'd like to propose that we maybe table this motion and pick it up at our, when's the next time we have an all-congregational meeting? We have any others?
No, there's nothing
scheduled. Nothing scheduled. Because I would like us to think about doing something more than just sending 3 people or 5 people and hit or miss. I think that you can do there's some rich stuff, and maybe the congregation isn't tuned into the wider UUA because we don't make it juicy. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Sue.
Liz Binger, and then I would propose a friendly amendment, that if the folks who made the amendment, moved the amendment and seconded it, would say, add the words next year, beginning next year. Sue? Okay.
Parliamentarian, do we need to vote on that amendment to the amendment, or can I just change it and we'll vote on it?
Well, then you change, now the amendment includes the words next year, because they both got it.
Okay with that? All right. So the amendment is that we have another speaker.
I attended online 1 year during the pandemic, and I found it a very useful experience. And we did talk about it afterwards. And I think what we could do this year, if Bob and the others were agreeable, is we could just be available at coffee hour to answer any questions that people had to ask us after the Sunday after the conference is over. And I'd volunteer to do it online again.
Thank you so much. Any further discussion of the amendment? So we're going to vote first on the amendment. We could vote to accept the amendment, and I'll read the full thing to you, or defeat it. If we defeat it, then that means it can be, we go back to the original. Okay? The motion as it stands now is to approve Bob Bunting, Carol Bunting, and Maria Barice to be All Souls delegates to the UUA General Assembly, and to give the Board of Trustees authority to approve 2 additional delegates. Beginning next year, request a report to the congregation. All those in favor?
I have a point of order. Yeah. We need to vote separately on whether or not to add the amendment.
Yes, I understand that.
Not the whole thing.
All right, fair enough. All right, so the motion of the amendment is beginning next year, we request a report to the congregation. All in favor? Do you want to do a count, Katrina? I'll count this side. Hold the cards up high so we can see them. 1, 2, 3. 6, 7, 8. I have 21 from there over. Okay. That's 52. All those opposed? $13. You have my number, Katrina? I have 13. How many do you have? And I have 13. That's 26. Abstain? I'll abstain because I forgot to vote for any of the other ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 abstentions, 9 abstentions. All right, so that amendment carries. Now read the full motion, which will include the amendment. To approve Bob Bunting, Carol Bunting, and Maria Barice to be All Souls delegates to the UUA General Assembly, and to give the Board of Trustees authority to approve 2 additional delegates, and beginning next year, request a report to the congregation. We need to do a re-motion of that, or we just vote on it? All right, that's the motion. So can I have a motion for that? Tina?
Motion has already been made.
Now why are you raising your hand when I ask for a motion? Is there any further discussion on that?
A report wouldn't have to be written. It could be spoken.
Good point.
And I'd like to just relate that if you see me after it, it will be unlikely that you'll get me to shut up about it. So,
Yes, in the back. You have to come to the microphone so folks at home can hear you.
Following up on what Linda Sargent said, the report doesn't have to be a written thing. It could be a summer service like Sue suggested. It could be something, a meaty article for the e-blast, or it could be whatever, something, but to get out to the congregation anything of major importance to us.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, once again, the motion reads to approve Bob Bunting, Carolyn Bunting, and Maria Barice to be also delegates to the UUA General Assembly, and to give the Board of Trustees authority to approve 2 additional delegates beginning next year. Request a report to the congregation. All those in favor, please hold your cards up. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. All those abstaining? Thank you. So the motion passes. Our next item is the approval of the 2023-2024 budget. The budget we have before you was put together with the Finance Committee, especially Chairs Claire Vento and Joel Ackerman, and with your input during and around the budget hearings last month. The Board of Trustees has reviewed and supported the budget. And now I'll invite our Treasurer, Janet Beebe, forward to make some comments before we ask for a motion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I just wanted to bring your attention to page 12 of the annual report. Under J Street Ministries, there's a new section that has not been in the annual report before, but it is a detail of the accounting for 25 J Street for the 10 months of this fiscal year. This is for your information. When I presented the draft budget at the budget hearings on May 7th and 8th, we were looking at a deficit budget of $4,564. After meeting with the Finance Committee and the board, there have been a few changes. And we have been able to decrease the deficit by $2,242 to $2,312. This still keeps the 4% increase for our staff. The changes you will see in the proposed budget as compared to the draft presented at the budget hearings are, on page 14, account 7210, Faith Formation admin has been reduced from $10,400 to $8,320. This is because we discovered an error in calculating the hours. This also decreased the payroll taxes. On page 16, account listed as 8530.XX, which in the budget hearings was called President Emergent Ministries and anticipated, and it had $1,000, has been changed. It has been renamed to Board, and it has been reduced to $500. Account 8530.6, Nominating and Leadership Development, has been increased from $500 to $1,000, Any leadership development cost for the board will go through the NLD budget and approval process. We still do not have a balanced budget, which I know we all wanted. But the deficit of $2,312 is less than 0.5% of the total budget. And this could very possibly be made up with a small fundraiser or some expense that we do not spend over the course of the next year. I want to thank you all again for your support of All Souls. You make worship services, youth and adult faith formation, pastoral care, and our commitment to social justice happen. I am asking the congregation to approve the 2023-2024 budget as presented. Is there, Kathy, who is seconding? Audrey.
Don't go too far. So there's been a motion to approve the budget for next year and seconded. And is there any discussion?
Tina Dubosc again. I want to commend Janet for the work she's done. It's not easy, not easy. I just have a question. What is the $500 for the, this is the first year we've had this line in the budget. $500 for the board, and what is intended for the use of that money, please?
Tina, I'm going to take this.
Okay.
This actually historically was always in the budget. The vice president and the president had about $300 to $500 each that covered, it just said president, vice president. And then years ago, when we were trying to trim down budgets, we eliminated the lines. So what it had been used for was incidental things that would come up, such as if volunteers had been working over the course of a full day, to buy pizza for that get-together, sometimes for gifts for people, any incidental, it's a very small amount of money. But to ask volunteers who are already financially supporting the congregation and doing the work that they do, to pay for those incidentals seemed unfair, and it just kept on coming up over the last 2 years. So we're actually bringing back something that had been there in the past, but we let go of to trim the budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion?
I just want to say that, well, first of all, I'm George Ducker, and I was chair of finance for a long time and treasurer. And when I was chair of finance, we had, well, man, you guys only have, we only have 489,000, and we had a total when I was chair of 90,000 total. And about that many members. And we're at 250 members now. We're closing in on a $500,000 budget. And this is a budget that is being written in tough financial times and high inflation. And it still reflects a congregation that wants to move forward and grow. When you think about it, when they talk about mega churches, we are the mega church in this state, so support.
That is very true, that we are a thriving and growing congregation.
Any other discussion at this time? All right, motion has been made to approve the budget for 22-23, 23-24. Can't say the dates right. All in favor, please raise your cards. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. How about a nice round of applause for Janet for doing a phenomenal job?
And thank you for your vote of confidence.
All right. Now we move to approval to move forward on the building project. After years of planning, waiting, and creative problem solving, our congregation is finally ready to proceed with our long anticipated building project. I'd like to invite Katrina Burkow up to make a few comments before we make the motion.
Good morning. Good afternoon. All right, it's after 12. So to summarize what many of you heard on May 7th, when we presented information and had some discussion about the building project, where we're at. So the funds available for the building project after the mortgage payoff, improving our air quality, the choir director's office and storage space, what's left right now in the account is $673,000, about. So plans are finalized. Carlin Construction is about to start destroying things, to begin the renovation toward creating a community room with a partition that will connect it to Unity Hall. That construction would happen this summer. The estimated fee, theirs was $415,000, but by the time we add fees and contingency, about $473,000, leaving about $200,000 to begin planning for our phase 2, which is courtyard, sidewalks, plantings, and repaving the parking lot. We are speaking with the landscape architect. We have a somewhat complicated site because of drainage, because of an easement that goes through, and because of contaminated soil. There's a wonderful, wonderful group of volunteers, the building team, that I'm privileged to lead, and want to thank them, and a big shout out to them. And Carlin Construction that we're working with is just been great listeners, great, feel like we're working with them, you know, and they're working with us very closely. So that's where we're at. And I'll be happy to take, well, yeah.
So we need a motion to proceed with the building project, indoor and outdoor, as outlined by the building committee and construction supervisors from Carlin Construction, as allowed by available funds. Do I have a motion for that?
Oh, I thought I was supposed to do that
All right,
part.
so good.
What he said, Janet Marolta, that's the motion, that we proceed with the building indoors and out with Carlin Construction and the building team as possible. But before I did that, I was going to say I really want a big hand for Katrina, who has been phenomenal. It's well deserved, and that's the motion.
Is there a second for that motion? Okay, Claire emphatically seconds it. Is there any, don't go away. Is there any discussion?
Sorry. So I'm not always in Unity Hall. My name is Shannon Mack. I'm often in with the children. But I've heard a lot about this building project. I have no idea what you're doing. And I come pretty much all the time. And I'm sure there's a report somewhere that I just didn't get my hands on. I was looking through here trying to figure out what exactly we're doing. Can you give me a better idea of what exactly this $400,000 project is?
I wouldn't go into it. I don't think we'll go into everything now. I think if you want to talk to Katrina afterwards, because there's been lots of information shared about it.
Okay.
If you want to give a quick.
I'll just say will happen right behind there, and yeah, I'd be happy to do a tour afterwards to show what we're talking about. And also, I've been trying to update in the e-blasts at least once a month when there's news there. So, but happy to, yeah, we want you to know. I want everyone on board.
Thank you, and I didn't mean to be dismissive about it, but we can answer all the questions afterwards. I think everybody else is pretty well aware because it's been, from here, it's been described often, and thank you because you're working with kids during that time, I think. Okay, so are there any other discussion items for this? All right, so the motion is to proceed with the building project, indoor and outdoor, as outlined by the building committee and construction supervisors from Carlin Construction, as allowed by available funds. Please raise your cards if you are in support of this motion. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstention? We have one abstention. Gotcha. Okay, so the motion is passed for the building committee to carry on with its work. Again, big round of applause to Katrina. Okay, before we adjourn, I'm going to ask Carolyn to come up and just give us a bit of history about 25 J Street, because some folks have asked, new folks, we're not sure what it is.
Yeah. Joel Ackerman and Clara Vento had shone light on that the congregation may not all be aware of the history of 25 J Street or where we are at this point. And I think, Shannon, your question affirms that the congregation changes every week, much less from year to year, and some people are more familiar than others. So very quickly, the house next door, 25 J Street, became available, went up for sale in 2015. And there was conversation at that time about whether or not the congregation should consider buying it. It was right next door. What would we use it for, et cetera. Very soon after we bought the house, we began seeing images of the refugee crisis all over the world. At the same time, the organization began to come together, the interfaith organization began to come together that was helping, with the intention of helping refugees, individuals and families settle in the United States and in this part of Connecticut in particular. And so many faith communities, All Souls included, joined forces with this newly developed nonprofit to do just that. The understanding is that the house next door would be used as a safe and soft landing for 6 months to a year for every new family. And then once they had put down roots, gotten their lives to some place where they could then rent a place in the wider community, they would move on, and then we would take in a new refugee family. What happened very quickly with the previous administration is that all refugee work came to a halt, to a grinding halt. The family who we housed in that house from Syria, they then lived in that house for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years actually, something like that. They moved out because we thought we were starting our building project and would need that house for administrative offices and meeting space. We, of course, as you know, were delayed with the building project at that time. But at that time, we learned, but the family did move out. We learned of an asylum seeker with very intense health needs who needed a place to stay. And so you may remember that from Haiti, this asylum seeker lived next door. again until she could get more services and her life together. And then she moved out. This was in 2020, so this brings us to 2020. In April of 2020, the house was going to be empty. We were contacted by the Hispanic Alliance with news of an immigrant family just moving to the United States from Colombia, and they needed housing at the time. And so the house was available. They moved in and have been living in the house since April of 2020. In January of 2022, in January of 2022, we asked that family, who have been so wonderful, two of whom are our wonderful nursery care providers, we asked them to search for new housing because now refugees were beginning to come back into the country. However, we have two crises parallel right now, one of which is a housing crisis. That family looked for housing everywhere. I wrote recommendations for them for every housing service out there possible. They could not find anything. So they even tried Habitat for Humanity. They were turned down twice from Habitat as well. So they continued to search. And to be clear, we ask for rent for that house throughout. It is below market rate. We understand this as a ministry of the congregation. We're not looking to make money. We're looking to cover our expenses. You will see in this annual report that we have run at a loss this year, and that is because of oil prices, energy prices, just going through the roof, those rates going through the roof. There was a mistake in the annual report. Rent has been paid consistently. Talk with me. I don't feel comfortable in a recording talking about that. This is this family's issues and privacy. I wish it hadn't been in the annual report, but I will talk with you about that privately if you have questions about it. So that is the history. We should all be very proud. We brought that house back to life to use as a home for refugees, immigrants, and asylum seekers. It has worked beautifully in that way. And I just want to also hold up that some of the money to refurbish that house was public funding. Claire Evento wrote a grant that the City of New London was offering to do lead abatement in older homes. We had all of that taken care of because of that grant proposal. It saved us, I think, Claire, like $25,000 at the time, $25,000. So we've also found ways of using public funding to support that. And that is the history. Claire and Joel, thank you for, Joel's not here anymore, but thank you for, there you are, you're in the back, for bringing it to the attention that it's good to remind what is happening. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. We are at our last item, and that is to adjourn the meeting. Motion to adjourn. Kathy. Second, Rosemary. Any discussion? All in favor? Good job. All opposed? Good job. Have a great week. Thank you.